Hi, everyone. We are about to go live with our CEO and a special guest today. I'm letting the algorithm do its thing. I am Marcella Shine, Senior Director of Marketing here at Zen Business. And before we jump in, I want to make sure that everybody's aware of the compliance alert sitting here at the bottom of the screen. So if you're an existing small business owner, it's really important that you pay attention to this update on beneficial ownership information and that you are aware of this upcoming deadline. If you need help with this or need any additional information, jump on our website and we will be there to help you understand what this is all about and why it is so important that you stay compliant for your business. Let's get into the good stuff. Welcome our guests. We are so excited to be here for Ask Our CEO, Small Business Advice with Ross Buhrdorf. Ross, how are you?
I'm great. I'm excited to be here today.
Great to see you this late in the day. Chase, welcome. We are so excited to have you with us today.
Thank you, Marcella. I'm glad to be here.
Chase, let's give everybody a little bit of background of how you found us and why you're here, or better yet, how we found you and why you're here.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Chase. I'm the founder and CEO of Leaders in Training. And I found Marcella and Mr. Buhrdorf through the Mavs Business Assist program, the MBA cohort from this year.
Ross, why did you think it was so important to support the Mavericks Business Assist program?
Yeah, I think what the Mavericks are doing is just fantastic. I go to the events and judge, and Mark, who's we're associated with our company, and we sponsor the Mavericks.
That's Mark Cuban. For those of you that are wondering who Ross's name dropping.
All right. I mean, well, shit, we should talk about that trade, Chase. What do you think, man? What's going on there in Dallas? I don't know what to.
Hey, new beginnings, I guess, but I don't know. Interesting story to say the least.
New beginnings. Well, we won't dominate the conversation with that. But what the Mavs do is just fabulous. Reaching out into the community. I think that's the most important thing. And the Mavs are very much a community focused organization. And I just couldn't be more thrilled with what they do and how they affect entrepreneurs, and everyone that we talk to. Folks like Chase really have that same experience. They make an impact. You have to get your hands dirty. You have to get out into the working world, out into the business world to have an impact, and that's what they do. And we love being associated with that. Couldn't be more happy about what they do and how we contribute to that.
Absolutely. A little bit of background. Chase, I know that you've been through the program with the Mavericks, and one of the things that Zen Business does is we coach, no pun intended. We are not coaching basketball. We have business coaching through the Zen Business Blueprint for Success. And without diving too deep into it, Chase, what have you found most useful or most important in getting that business coaching through the Zen Business Blueprint for Success?
Yeah, Marcella, that's a great question. I think there's been a lot of awesome components that Zen Business has offered through this cohort. It's tough to just pick one, but I think that for practical reasons, the blueprint that was regarding the marketing funnel and kind of the timelines for that was very impactful to my business and definitely helped the infrastructure and planning within that department. So definitely the marketing and sales funnel.
Right. Well, those of you that are Zen Business customers like Chase, I think, Chase, we've helped you with compliance and formation. Definitely check out the Blueprint for Success, which launches officially inside of the Zen Business platform next week. We look forward to having you there, checking out all of these benefits. So speaking of checking things out, Chase, I know that you have some great questions to challenge Ross with. So I'm really excited to jump in and get started. Before we do that, tell us a little bit about Leaders in Training, Chase, so that everybody can understand why you started your business and why it was so important that you took that leap as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, absolutely. So my background is a teacher and a coach, and I got into education because I wanted to make an impact in the lives of my students. over time, I started Leaders in Training because I wanted to make an impact in as many lives as possible. And so one of the things that we found through my time as an educator and through Leaders in Training was that students often experienced and reported a lot of sense of lack of direction, lack of guidance, and even oftentimes hopelessness. And so one of the ways that we wanted to add value to the student experience was to complement what the school districts are doing with leadership and character development to make content that's relevant to student interest. If you think about it, having more content that is dynamic and captivating in those components in those areas really, I think, would enhance the student experience overall and allow them to find more attainable hope in future to be realistic and practical.
That's wonderful. That's a great why you started your business, Chase.
Mm-hmm.
Let's jump in and go ahead and ask our CEO the first question today, Chase.
Yeah. So again, coming from an educational background, I know that there are a lot of educators who are either coming up with content and curriculum that they've made, or they have kind of a business infrastructure like myself. And really their heart is to see the students do well and enhance their student success opportunities. And so this first question, I guess, that I have for you, Ross, is as a established CEO yourself, and as somebody who has created successful companies and startups like HomeAway, now known as Verbo, what would you tell today's student in the classroom to connect the dots between group projects, student assignments, homework assignments, deadlines? How would you connect that to their desire that they often communicate about having an entrepreneurial desire and aspiration?
It's a great question, and thanks, Chase. I think, even my own experience day to day, I look at my challenges as opportunities to, I know it sounds flippant, but as opportunities to learn and challenge myself. So I think, especially in, high school, junior high, in these levels of education in the public schools, there's always an opportunity. Are you the leader of the particular team? Are you contributing to the team? Are you, making a difference with everyone else, setting an example?
Mm-hmm.
I think all of these traits are transferable to, entrepreneurship and business. Businesses are made up of people, and people interact. And so, the way to scale your business, and I know you're finding this out, Chase, on your own, is you need help.
Yeah.
You cannot do it by yourself. I mean, if you can look at the results, you can look at the studies that successful startups are made up of, partnerships. It's typically, two co-founders are usually more successful than one doing it by himself, and or having, people around you. So it's a teamwork effort. Mm-hmm. So if you can work together in a team on a team project, showing leadership in the classroom, and that doesn't mean you have to be the boss. You could just be an individual contributor in one particular area. I think these are all great experiences for, leaders in training. I mean, it's always training. I mean, you can ask Marcella. I'm still in training, Chase, believe it or not. Yeah. I mean, I'm learning and making mistakes all the time, but I view that, that as the opportunity. And these kids these kids, and yourself included, and I put myself in there, you don't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
Just view it as an opportunity and something you can learn from. And, it's great we do it at work at ZenBusiness. We call them, retrospectives, or after action reviews is what they call them in the military, is, how did this go? What did we learn from it? Et cetera. You can take that in any kind of experience.
Yeah.
And Ross, as I'm listening to you and thinking through the opportunity that either, school or sports teaches kids, Ross, what's the What do you think is the biggest gap? And Chase, I have the same question for you. What do you think is the biggest gap in what they're learning and what they need to become entrepreneurs? Chase, in your own experience, what was that spark or what was that thing you wish somebody had told you that would have maybe shortcut that decision or made it easier?
Yeah, great question. Well, for me personally, I was blessed with two great parents, and still have them today. And they often told me a lot about resiliency, respect, responsibility. And so within that, and just the conversations we had naturally, there were a lot of talks about leadership and influence and credibility and how to carry yourself. And so I wouldn't say that's necessarily all the way missing, but a lot of times for many students experience broken homes and are going through real life situations that for a lot of people happen later in life, but they're having it happen real time as middle school and high school students. So I think for me, if I put myself in their shoes, I think the light bulb would click a little bit more if I did have that understanding of my impact, and if I did have an understanding of my potential and that I can be a leader. Like Ross, even as you said, that I don't have to be perfect to step into a leadership capacity, but that inherently I do have influence. But how do I nurture that through credibility and through healthy relationships? So I think that would be helpful.
Ross, what about you? You have an interesting background too. You didn't come from this entire, tech world. You didn't come from successful entrepreneurs. What gave you that spark, and what do you wish you had known earlier on?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with Chase. I mean, a lot of these kids, don't have the greatest launching platform that that maybe Chase and I did. Both of my parents were side hustlers. They always had a side hustle going on. If it wasn't renovating houses or hanging wallpaper with my mother, so they were always had a side hustle going on, and they always were hardworking, big into education. So we were always pushed in that direction. So it was natural for me to be an entrepreneur because I saw it from both of them as the side hustle and saw that it could be done. So that was it. I think, and even just my most recent, I became a CEO. I wasn't as clever or as ambitious as Chase. And that, as a young man, he becomes a CEO. I went up the technical ladder, but I was always an entrepreneur. I was shoveling walks when I was a kid. I was cutting wood when I was a kid, and always had a job while I was going to university, et cetera, and put myself through school. So I think for me, it was, becoming a CEO late in life. It was kind of the last stop for me. I didn't have anywhere else to go. I knew I didn't want to be a CTO anymore. And I just wish I would have had more faith in my ability and trust that I could do it, because, people tell me I'm pretty good at it, and it's a hell of a lot easier than being the CTO. I never want to do that again. So, I just think people should go for it sooner. I always went for it, but I felt like there was a limitation. I mean, this was like kind of the last stop for me. I was too young to retire. And, so I had to create my own business like you, Chase, because no one would hire me as a CEO. Yeah. They depending on how this turns out, they might not hire me after this either. So we'll see how it goes. But even then, I mean, I'm loving it. I think it's a second nature to me, and I just wish I would have trusted myself earlier. But I mean, I grew up kind of tough, so I didn't have that support. I just had to figure it out as I went along. And I think the other thing, Chase, I would add is I learned, I learned later. I certainly learned along the way to ask for help, but even it seems even more as the more my problems get bigger and bigger, the first thing I do is ask for help. And so I really wish, and I see it in younger folks, is they're afraid to ask for help. Man, everybody wants to help you, and you should ask for help, because there's a lot of things that scare the shit out of me until I start asking for help, and then I get it. Everybody's willing to do that, and it makes a huge difference. So ask for help.
Yeah.
Believe in yourself, and go for it.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. Jinx.
Yeah.
All right, Chase, let's move into what's really ailing you now as a business owner. Yeah. What's the day-to-day bug that's in your ear that you would really like to help? Some help. Speaking of help, Ross, perfect lead into the next thing. Yeah. Where do you think you need help now? Like, what's kind of bugging you? And I know that MVP is one of those things that you and I discussed. First, tell us what an MVP is for those of you that are just getting into this tech talk. And let's see if Mr. X CTO can help.
Yeah. So for those watching, an MVP stands for minimal viable product. So it's the version of your product that's kind of like the beta product, or in some senses kind of like a prototype, but a little bit more advanced than that, right? It's what do I want to introduce to the market for people to first understand who I am. And so I think one of the questions that I have for you, Ross, and for other entrepreneurs who are out there, maybe in my shoes or about to be in my shoes, right? How would you, or what would you say to kind of help navigate the timeline of when to introduce a product into the market, as far as making sure that it's credible enough to be a product, but then at the same time, making sure that you have scalable opportunities to enhance it along the way?
Yeah, it's a question I get a lot, Chase, and I pretty consistently give this answer, which is as soon as possible. And and of course, take it with a grain of salt. It depends on the product, right? But I'm a big, and this is my background. So software engineer, and I was the guy that had to build the products. And, you invest so much time and money in building software, and it's so expensive, and you get it wrong. It's at least early on, you get it wrong so much. Yeah. There's so much waste. And so I'm one for, what is the when I say minimal, I mean the minimal product you can get out there that gets you feedback, and gets you excited and pointed in the right direction, that demonstrates that value exchange between you and the customer. And so this is, we have 800,000 plus customers, and I still tell our team when they get wound up about, oh my God, we're going to do something wrong, or, the customers are going to get upset or hate us. It's like, we don't have enough customers to worry about that yet. We have a lot of customers, but certainly early on, you don't have any customers. You don't have to worry about your brand. What's most important is learning. Yeah. And so if you put on that hat of learning, it's what's the minimum thing you can do to learning. And it should be definitely, the minimum thing. I mean, when we started, we had 10 different websites. I mean, one of our, they were using non-technical people were putting together websites that, with website builders that were just strung together, and we were testing, language, and we'd get people to sign up and put their credit card on. And then we'd say, oops, we don't really have the product, stay tuned, and refund their money. I think that really was the start of the company. And so when we say minimal, it should really be minimal to figure out what's the next step, because you're always trying to, go after that value exchange. When is someone willing to give me a credit card? And boy, that is, that's the 0 to 1 is what you're trying to do. And it's the scariest part too.
Right.
And we did surveys. We talked to people on the street. We were like mad men and women trying to figure out what people would exchange money for. That's the most important thing. Don't worry about all that scale nonsense, and who cares about scale early on. You want someone to exchange their hard-earned money for what you're offering.
Yeah.
Ross, I know that one of the things you say, and Chase, I don't know if you saw that Ross is writing a book. Yeah. And one of the underlying themes of the book is that fear is a liar. And so many people don't move forward because of fear. And I feel like this is very tied to this question, Ross, is
yep.
You can't be afraid to go out there and be wrong sometimes.
Oh my God, it's scary as heck.
Yep.
And, just take the leap. Fear is a liar, and just go for it, because it's so rewarding to, see just even a glimmer, of your idea, because that's what you hook onto. And then you take the next step, and you take the next step and the next step, and do the next right thing based on that input. And so, it doesn't take a battleship to do that, because trust me, your customers do not want to buy a battleship. Whatever battleship you have in your head, they're not interested in it. I can just guarantee you that. So you should, follow this path, and it's a curvy path, and just take that as the norm. And so the less amount of money you waste on building something that customers don't want. I mean, I spent my career, I always tell everyone, I spent 2/3 of my career building software that no one bought, which is the truth for software engineers. So avoid that.
Yeah. No, if I can interject real quick, I think that's extremely powerful to hear, especially coming from, yourself and the accomplishments that you have. For my audience specifically, I know a lot of my audience on LinkedIn are within the education system. And so I think them being able to hear that and relay that as continued encouragement to their teachers to continue to encourage their students, hey, just try, right? Trust yourself. You're going to make mistakes, because I know as an educator, that was a common theme that we experienced as an educator in the classroom. Like, hey, just try. You're not going to get 100 on everything, right? And I hear you essentially saying the same thing as a CEO and as a business owner. Everything's not going to be a 100, but you need to be able to go responsibly so that you can learn along the way, along that path. And
I love that. And I love what you added there, Chase. Go forward responsibly. It's not to be, a crazy person, but go forward responsibly, knowing that, the balance here is to conserve your time and energy. And so the minimum, really, the only reason they put viable, we'd call it VP, but they need to be this modifier, which is minimum. It should be for me, it's a capital M. It's like minimal, or, if you could, like the first ones, what's the least embarrassing product I could put out there? So if you could put out like an E in front of there, is embarrassing viable product, that would really be better to make the point, because, your customers will ultimately tell you, and that's what you need to follow. It's the educational part. It's the learning. It's the customer that's important. The product is that vehicle, and you'll spend time getting it right later, or getting it perfect later, but you're not in the optimization phase up front.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Chase, I know you really wanted to talk about, I know Ross just said, let's get this least embarrassing product out the door. I think we're going to coin a new phrase here, trademark. I'll call Courtney, our lawyer immediately. First, and then you get to this exciting time, right, where you hit that momentum, where you feel things are working. In case you really wanted to dive into this, give us a little bit of background of why this was so important to you.
Yeah. So again, personally, coming from an educator background, leaders in training, the concept of it, the idea of it has actually been brewing since 2013. I remember that was my senior year of college, and I walked into the campus library at the time, and was just like, man, I don't know what's next after graduation, but a dream job would be to teach, to coach, but to specifically inspire students, to let them know like, hey, you can do excellent things. Because I was fortunate to have coaches in my life, my parents as well, to relay that message. And I saw how powerful it was. So as a teacher and a coach developing this, it took me, I officially started in 2021 while I was still teaching and coaching, 2 hours here, 3 hours there. And then the MVP was born, right? So for other educators who are out there, or for other people in industries that might be extremely saturated, what would you kind of tell them to, as far as how they can create and maintain momentum when they feel like the process is extremely long to come to market, or they're already at market, but it's extremely saturated and they're just trying to get an in? What would you share for them to create and maintain momentum in that?
Well, I mean, it's a good question. I would go back to, what I just said, which is, it's got to be, you've got to get to that minimal viable product and get, where you're getting some level of product market fit, another acronym, but fit. People are paying you money for your product or your service, but before let's put a pin in that. I mean, there's this idea of the time commitment, and, do I have enough time to do this? I mean, like, it sounds like what you did, Chase. This was a side hustle, right? You had to pay the bills, you had to pay rent, and you had to get this thing up and running. So it typically starts as a side hustle. And that's the way I'd recommend people do this thing, is get a side hustle. You don't want to jump off of a cliff, and not be able to pay rent unless you're, living with mom or dad, or you're, have a trust fund or something like that. Then you can do those things. But if you don't, then you have to start this on the side. And it's kind of the adage I use, which is, the logic is kind of like, I'm not going to plant a tree in the front yard because the damn things take, 20 years or 30 years to get growing. My response was, well, then you should have planted it, yesterday, if it's going to take that long. So the question there, I think they're asking is it worth my time? That's the question I'd ask them. Is it worth your time to get this thing going? Or do you want to stay in, your unrewarding job or something you're not getting a charge out of? So I think it's get started as soon as you can, spend as much time as you can. The more success you have, the easier it gets. I mean, there's days when I come to work and I said, oh man, I think I'm going to work here for the next 24 hours and we'll see how it goes. And then there's other days where I'm like, man, that went by fast. I'm ready to go to bed so I can get back up in the morning and start working on this. So, I mean, everybody has ups and downs, but I think, go back to following a blueprint like we've got, get help, get coaching, get out there as quickly as you can and determine, what will someone give me their credit card for? And is that something that I want to do, and something that I think, brings joy to me and brings joy to the world, then that gets the momentum going.
Yeah.
And what typically what can get in the way is fear. I'm not smart enough. Didn't go to the right school. I don't have enough money. I don't have the right network. I'm shy. I feel like an imposter. All of this craziness that gets in the way. And trust me, you need to, I have all of that. So trust me, I know.
Yeah.
So, you're looking at an expert in all of those things. You just got to get out there as quick as possible and get people to, I say, give me my credit, you got to get them to give you their credit card for what you're selling. because businesses go out of business for two things. They run out of money, or they don't have a product market fit, which means no one's interested in what you're selling. And it's not what you're selling is not about you. It's not personal. It's about you haven't found that product market fit. How do you get to that product market fit? Is get them to give you your credit card, whatever way you can, as quick as possible and easy. And then, once that gets going, we're talking about momentum. Once that gets going, then you got to get into this balanced mode of like, well, my customers are telling me this. They're telling me they want more of this. Lean into the more of this. Yeah. Okay. What do you want more of? I want more of this. What do you like? I like this. Okay. What don't you like? I don't like that. Do less of that. It will guide you. And that's how you get the momentum going. So, always be talking to your customers, always be looking for that value exchange, and just get out there and do it, even if you don't want it to. And I had, one of the co-founders, JC, who is now off in Europe starting his own company that we've helped fund too. Mm-hmm. I mean, Chase, I'd be walking down the street and I'd look around and where the hell is JC? And he'd be talking to somebody. Yeah. He's never met a person that he didn't like, so he was outgoing and always out there and doing it. So it was a huge advantage to us, as he would always do a lot of the research. I'd do it too, but you really got to break yourself of not being able to engage with the customer. You really have to do that.
Yeah. So if I'm hearing you correctly and just digesting all of that, great insight is kind of like we all are almost not wanting to be true. You just actually have to do the work. You've got to actually get out there. You've got to actually get embarrassed from time to time and, learn from the lumps and the bruises and just keep going. And that's
right. That you said it right. And there will be times when you're like, oh man, I cannot take another knock on the head. But in those times, just take a nap, go to bed. It changes. Trust me, it always changes when you've had a good night's sleep. View them as learning.
Yeah,
it really is. View it as feedback, not failure.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll know when you fail, and that's running out of money, or no one, I've tried everything and nobody wants to buy my product. Mm-hmm. Don't say it's because, we have stupid customers or we're before our time or all those other excuses. It's because you haven't got to the value exchange.
Yep.
And that's what you need to go to it. And it doesn't matter, what you think, it matters what actually happens. So, don't be I call it the CEO with no clothes, not the emperor with no clothes. It's the CEO with no clothes, right? Yeah. It's like, if we just did this, if we just did that, if we did this or that, give me your credit card. That's what I want.
That's good stuff.
Chase, thank you so much for asking us these questions. Before we let you go back to the hustle of your business, how can everyone watching help you get your message across? Who are you looking for? Who are you selling to? That's one of the big things that we certainly cover in the blueprint. And you mentioned it being your favorite part. Who is that ideal customer that you need to speak to so that you can continue to grow and get those credit cards in place, like Ross is very explicitly directing you to?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks for that, Marcella. So we specifically are doing the majority of our marketing to school districts, particularly individuals within the athletic and counseling departments who are out there and want to see the students do well and develop overall as a character and as an individual. So that's the main way, is just share us, share our name, share this video, and just visit our site at wearelitedu.com. That's WE as we, ARE, lit for leaders in training, edu.com. And on there, you'll see a great information about what we offer and who we're trying to serve and how you can help us do that.
Thank you so much. And Chase, I'm not going to let you go without a little bit of a brag. Otherwise, Ross will tell me I'm not doing my job. What have you enjoyed besides the Mavericks and the blueprint for success? What's the key thing that you have found as a customer that's been really reliable and important to you as a ZenBusiness customer?
Yeah.
I'm going to put you on the spot for that one for sure.
Hey, no, I'll be vulnerable and transparent here, right? So like I've mentioned many times, my background is in education. I never thought I would be a businessman. I never thought I would be a CEO or in a position where I am now, right? So part of that looked like early on not wanting to do the dirty work, not wanting to be uncomfortable, as Ross spoke of so many times. And so ZenBusiness has done a great job not only getting me up and running as a company in an established entity, but they also have a very, very convenient, easy way to make sure that you are staying in compliance as a business entity. True story, and Marcella, I've mentioned this in the cohort to people so that they don't make the same mistake. But I was actually in a position where I had individuals who wanted to do business with me at the time, but unbeknownst to me, I couldn't because my state compliance ran out. So I was not in compliance. Therefore, I had a very difficult time doing business. And so I would just say that ZenBusiness offers a very easy, convenient by text message, keeping you up to date, making sure that your business is within compliance so that you can operate as a business and impact lives.
He gave you his credit card, Ross.
Right on, Chase, man. I love that. I'll send the check in the mail. You did great. And hey, my daughter is an educator, so I know how tough it is for educators to make things happen for their students. And I know when you're a dedicated educator, a lot of times the school district is not super helpful. So it's great that you're doing what you're doing, directly contributing.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you guys so much for your time and for your help and your assistance.
You bet.
Thanks for jumping in here. Ross, closing words for other folks like Chase looking to start their business and jump in and get this going based on everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's not magic. I think if Chase and I can do it, you can do it too. I think you just have to take that leap, that first step, and ask for help. And there's plenty of great companies out like ours that are here to help you. And, if you don't, like me, it was the last stop for me. So you can do it easier than me. It doesn't have to be the last stop that you become the CEO. You can do it yourself and just take that leap and go for it. It'll be okay. It'll work out. I mean, even if, getting a couple hard knocks are the best way to learn. And you don't get those unless you're out there, as, in the field of battle, I think is one of our, Theodore Roosevelt said, you got to be in the arena. So get out in the arena.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Ross and Marcella, I want to thank you guys again for allowing me to get my message out and to help me help school districts, to help our teachers who are able to help our students. And so I definitely appreciate your insight, your wisdom, and I'm sure this won't be the last time that we stay in touch.
Good. I'll see you in Dallas next weekend.
Let's do it.
Bye, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today.
Bye-bye.
See you guys.
Is that it?